Oblivion, Bethesda's real magnum opus. Yeah, sorry Skyrim. The game that's given us quirky NPCs, absurd glitches, and a cast list that includes Patrick Stewart, Sean Bean, and at least 4 other voice actors. A world full of charm and magic. I revisit every few years just to soak in the beauty of Cyrodiil. But this time I thought I wanted a real challenge. Something more than just cranking the difficulty up. Something that would test the limits of my patience, my creativity, and probably my sanity.
Fall before me, Breton!
So I thought, can you beat Oblivion with no attacks and no spells? To start off, the actual rules for the run are no mods, cheats, item dupes, etc., but most importantly, no using a weapon of any type, including unarmed. No casting a spell, which includes powers and lesser powers. Basically, just remove the attack and cast spell keybinds.
Take that!
The journey begins at the character creator. We're going to make Luigi because we're going to win by doing nothing. Escorting Picard is easy enough because the blades will do most of the work for us. We get separated briefly, but after looting everything that isn't nailed down, we meet up again. Professor X reads our horoscope, which is the Atronac, because not regenerating magicka really means nothing to us, but absorbing 50% of spells will help us die just a little less often, and I'm personally a fan of not dying. Boris asks us to guard the Emperor, but don't look at me. I'm even more useless than normal.
A sign, a trap!
What about it's a dead end? What's your call, sir?
I don't know. I don't see any good option.
I can go no further. You alone must stand against the Prince of Destruction and his mortal servants. Amulet, give it to Joffrey. He alone knows where to find my last son.
I tried my best to body block him, but that's all I got, buddy. Boris asks us where we stand in the class war. Combat and magic are, understandably, not at the top of the list for us, so we choose stealth. For primary stats, endurance because I have an aforementioned inclination towards not dying, and luck because we're gonna need it. Maybe it'll help us die less, I don't know. Now for the 7 major skills, we kinda just grab whatever skills we might want some bonus points in. At this point, the strategy is largely to not really level up, because leveling up in Oblivion makes the world scary. Yeah, anyone ever tell you the world doesn't revolve around you? They never played Oblivion. Now we just need a name for our amazing custom class. I went with Green Mario. He was pretty far off, let's be real. After simulating your grandmother's Windows XP machine with too many toolbars installed, we close 50 pop-ups and make one last trek. Unlike our late benefactor, this one's through the sewers. A bit less glamorous, but what are you gonna do? Much like IRL, we're going to need money to be able to do anything in this world, especially without fighting, so the first thing we do is attempt to join the Thieves Guild, but we're assaulted in broad daylight by a random conjurer. I don't know what his problem was, maybe he went go-karting with us once or something. We finally find Armand and alternate between threatening to bust his kneecaps and telling him premium jokes. And the race is on. We need to get someone's journal, but even though Sonic's refrain echoed in my head,
You're too slow!
You don't have to be fast if you're just smart. We employ the Galaxy Brain strategy of simply talking to her.
Don't try.
Two hours later.
It works well enough, and we beat her to the journal, and now we're officially thieves.
Congratulations!
But before we get to thieving, let's trick some pirates into attacking us so we can steal their loot. After demolishing this poor woman's shop, we sell off the loot we've collected thus far and begin the actual thieving. And it's time to meet our first fence. After dropping our items like they're hot, because they were, we decide it's time to take up magic despite being unable to cast a single spell. All we need is the concept of a spell, and that's enough to become the president of the Mages Guild, but that's for another video. Now we're free to ransack the Mages Guild with no real consequence. No fence required, but we go talk to him anyway because this guy's my spirit animal.
I'm really tired.
Now that we have a little bit of money, we no longer need to ask.
Spare a coin for the infirm.
But we're still incapable of actually fighting in any capacity at all. Because of this, I think we should go ask around Coral for some rumors. Why? Because this is where they hand out the full-size candy bars. But coincidentally, we find Reynold Germain of the Super Germain Bros. He just doesn't know it yet. We find his twin brother and he wants us to find his family home. Why are we doing this, you might ask yourself? Well, to answer that question, we have to travel all the way back to 2006. See, at this point in time, Todd Howard had not yet had the enlightening moment to realize that we all needed someone that was sworn to carry our burdens. The Super Germain Bros will follow us back to their family home, after we do a couple of trivial tasks, like find their family home. Well, we find it. It just happens to be covered in onions, I mean ogres. But not to worry, I have the perfect idea. I remember a certain quest in Leyawiin that gives you a staff that spawns 4 scamps just by having it in your inventory. You don't have to ever use it, so it meets all the requirements of this challenge. But I'm an idiot, because these scamps don't actually attack anything. Now being trailed by 4 ogres and 4 useless scamps, we make our way to Hackdirt. This town is full of lovely people, and it seems rude to get them all killed by donkeys, I mean ogres. But after an epic showdown on the steeple of their church or something, I don't know, the ogres won. Hackdirt is no more. 2 of the ogres, disgusted by their own actions of wiping out the lovely people of Hackdirt, decide they've had enough and become both monks and pacifists. We have a problem though. It turns out we really can't do anything against an enemy that isn't hostile in this challenge run, so yeah. While it's a problem for another day. In the meantime, the other 2 ogres are still upset at us for being in their swamp, so we pull them plus a few wolves that just wanted to be a part of the fun all the way up to Coral. Now because I can't ever seem to focus on one thing and we do still have more groundwork to lay, it's time to buy some mage tallow candles. Because with them, we can unlock enchanting, and enchanting may be useful. But they're so expensive. So we lightly burglarize a few places. And now that we've got some candles and can enchant, it's time to not actually do that and head back to Weatherlay. The 2 pacifist ogres seem to have hecked right off and are nowhere to be found, but is that good enough for the Germain Bros? Of course not. So now our mission is expanded to find these 2 and hunt them down. Luigi is just so ridiculously slow and doesn't have any of his nice floatiness from Smash Bros, so we decided that stealing a horse is the way to go. But of course, it's a dumb idea, and before the guards throw us in the brig, we drop all the hot merchandise because we still want On Guard to tell us we've made a good bit of gold, or one of the other 3 Oblivion voice lines. At this point, I realize we just aren't going to be able to clear out Weatherlay without some help, and I know just the person to help. We head over to Kvatch to meet our dear friend, hoping that nothing horrible has befallen the town in which he resides. Unfortunately, it seems like some rather disrespectful individuals have both sacked and razed Kvatch, which I would personally consider rude behavior, so we enter the doorway they left behind to speak to the manager. The manager is nowhere to be found, but we did find this cool shiny rock, which is unfortunate for the Oblivion Gate because it seems like Mehrunes Dagon hires from the same engineering talent pool as Bowser, and the shiny rock acts as a self-destruct button. Now that we've advanced the story though, we can get Martin to follow us back to Wayne Priory. But first, a little detour back to Weatherlay. After playing hide and seek for what feels like hours, we finally find the ogre smoking a cigarette behind the church in Hackdirt. While the world may be basically on fire and this may be Uriel Septim's only heir, he doesn't seem to have a problem with helping us clear out a few ogres. With Weatherlay cleared and our fictional weapon metaphorically stained with the blood of ogres, we can finally enlist the help of the Germain Bros to our cause. After taking Martin by Wayne and Priory for some well-deserved R&R, Joffrey is now among our ranks. Next up, I thought Ulrich Leyland, I don't know you and I don't care to know you could be a follower, and he can, but he's not essential. Also, I didn't even know that was a message you can get, so we go ahead and drop off Joffrey and Martin atop Cloud Ruler Temple and try to find a way to kill off Ulrich. While the Germain Bros attempted to bungee jump without a cord, Ulrich was a bit too smart for that, but not smart enough to not stand under a giant blade thing. At this point, I've realized that we won't be able to simply rely on random quest followers, however useful they may be. So we're going to have to actually level up. Originally, I had no intention of leveling, but in order to get gear that isn't the equivalent of a World of Warcraft quest screen,
oh dude, 4 strength, 4 stam, leather belt.
we'll need to get...
Level 18?
No, level 25, but I appreciate your enthusiasm. Now apparently we already got enough EXP to get 2 levels, but because I really didn't intend on leveling initially, these are far from ideal. After these 2 levels though, it's time for Luigi to turn his life around. It's time to stand dangerously close to mud crabs, jump into piers and or docks, sneak into corners, swim into walls.
One eternity later.
Okay, I know I said level 25 earlier, but I didn't actually look it up beforehand or anything, and I wasted time getting all the way to 30 because I thought I had to. But let's just overlook that fact, it's fine. Either way, we leveled up for a reason, and that's mostly to get a couple of effects: reflect damage and reflect spell. This lets us bully the enemies and say stop hitting yourself until they die. A much more macabre version than what you may remember from childhood. With that in mind, most of the reflect damage and spell items are random leveled loot. I had intended on not really abusing save scumming as much as possible, but there's genuinely just no real way to farm for randomly leveled loot otherwise. So we make our way to this nifty location and begin opening the trapdoor to Saya Tatar Gorahame. A lot. And I mean a lot. This took hours, but eventually we got up to 86 reflect damage and 20 reflect spell. Partly by farming for the items, but also selling high value loot and completing Deep Scorn Hollow, which unlocks the raiment of the Crimson Scar. Finally, now that we're somewhat capable of not dying, it's time to get rid of the stupid scamp staff that someone thought would be a good idea. Thanks, pass me. After dropping off the staff that shall never be mentioned again, we head over to Namira's shrine because there's a nice ring we can get here. Unfortunately, to complete the quest involves casting a spell Namira gives you, and yeah, about that. After giving up on our lifelong dream of owning Namira's ring, we advance the story not really for the sake of advancing the story, but because we can get another item to add some more spell reflect for those sneaky mages and their silly spells. So we follow Boris into Luther Broad's boarding house basement. Nothing with that much alliteration could be bad. But surprise, the Mythic Dawn are here. Unfortunately for this guy, the Jermaine Bros have been playing a lot of Punch-Out and give him the old 1-2 until he collapses, dropping a mysterious book and 10 gold. After telling Boris of our heroic exploits of doing nothing, we take the book to our favorite Argonian. That's right, Tarmina. Who doesn't remember her? She gives us the second book, but the third we have to bully a Bosmer by looking down on him. Literally. To get the fourth book, which is an absolute requirement even though we already know where to go, 17 mud crabs, 32 goblins, and 49 Boris battle cries later, we finally find a random stool and table. But what's on the table? It's the subscribe button. Maybe press it if you're enjoying whatever this nonsense is. After failing to follow even the most basic of instructions, this little idiot notices the Jermaine Bros. In the middle of the chaos that ensues, Boris decides he's had enough of Reynolds' BS and strikes him down. But what happens next, you wouldn't even believe. Or if you've played Oblivion, you probably will. Cyrodiil's finest psychic guard shows up. He heard this crime being committed hundreds of feet underground and got here in record time. But finally, we got the ring we wanted. Oh yeah, and the fourth book. I forgot we're also doing the story. With the fourth book in tow and the mystery solved, Luigi has located the hideout of the dangerous and spooky cult known as the Mythic Dawn. Do you think they'll let us join if I offer them 3.50 septums? Well, it was around this time that the Mythic Dawn realized that their new recruit was about 8 stories tall and a crustacean from the Proterozoic era. They didn't have a lawn but told us to get off of it anyway in the form of summoning clanfares and hitting us with blunt objects. After that harrowing encounter, we managed to sneak in. I mean, not really, but let's just pretend. And steal the Mysterium Zarces. Since we're already enemies and we stole their book, no harm in stealing some more supplies while we're here.
You won't get away with this!
It turns out it was a suicide cult. Except for this guy.
I give up!
Now, I generally forgot how this quest goes or how we leave this place, so I spent quite a while just running around like a dum-dum, and we were getting dangerously low on healing potions. Somehow being within close proximity of the Mysterium Zarces made me forget that you can just wait for 1 hour to heal, but I employ this game mechanic judiciously for the rest of the run. After making it back to the main room, Ruma Cameron commits Sudoku while we stand there. And I guess that's good enough, so now the locked door is not locked or something. Either way, we finally step out into that brisk Skyrim air. Wait, this isn't Skyrim. Sean is sad we couldn't get the Amulet of Kings, but happy we got their spooky book. While we were out infiltrating a cult, the cultists snuck into Bruma and invested in real estate. We can't have that, so we exercise our right of eminent domain, and by that I mean if you're within Luigi's domain, your death is imminent, and as a result, your property becomes forfeit. Now that the spies are taken care of, we make sure Martin doesn't have Alitis, as he tells us about the 4 items we need to open a portal to Mankar Cameron's Daedric timeshare. After increasing our blade and block by watching these LARPers, we make a quick detour because not only are we going to get the Daedric artifact, let's ignore that we failed to get one already, but we're actually going to get 2. And for that, we'll need to bring in the big guns. This guy. Now, I know it doesn't look like much or anything at all because Oblivion is as dark as a DC movie sometimes, but look at this nonsense. This guy summons a Daedrith. That's not nothing. After the call of Luigi and our new prospective member purges the Cave of Zombies, I finally came to the conclusion that we should really have 100% reflect damage because we just keep needing too many healing items. So off to Mehrunes Razor DLC, which I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't done this content since, throwing out a random guess, June 16th of 2006. So after bumbling around for an hour or so, we find this lovely individual named Frathen Drothen and steal his hood. Finally, 100% reflect damage. So what do we do now?
Now we can finally play the game.
Let's go get the first Daedric artifact. Now this one is not for Martin. Luigi needs this because it's a better anti-spell shield than the one we have. So after finding a bunch of dinguses... Dingusi? What's the plural? Anyway, we rescue some idiots in Pyrite's realm and get the shield. Now our reflect spell gear set is complete. We're as complete as I plan on making it at least, but we do need a Daedric artifact to give to Martin, and it's not going to be Spellbreaker. So we channel our inner adoring fan and stand by Azura, by Azura, by Azura. Okay, that joke wasn't good. I'm being told I'm losing subscribers in real time, but you know what? It was worth it. We're supposed to grant Azura's followers the sweet release of death, but instead we just stand around the mine at different points. Yo, nice silence spell, but the joke's on you, buddy. With Azura's star hitched to the back of the Luigi Express, we struggle to get some afflictions banished because apparently the way the altar works is some priest hides underneath it and casts a banish affliction spell at you or something and they just bounce right off of us. Now that we aren't a vampire, Martin is happy to see Azura's star. The star over Bruma, however, is less bright, much like the guard captain himself. Captain Bird needs us to show him how to close an Oblivion gate. Seriously. We have to get him all the way to the Sigil Stone, which I probably should have known, but I didn't. Around this time, we gave Gilbert Mehrunes Razor. I mean, what were we ever gonna do with it? After making our way back to the entrance, Bird? After a lot of finagling, like way more than is probably reasonable, and wiping out the native fauna of Oblivion, leaving it a desolate hellscape. Wait a second. Anyway, we finally managed to make it to the Sigillum Sanguis, and since Bird happens to exist within the same cell, good enough, I guess. After some wild mood swings from Bird,
But thanks to our friend here, bother me again and you might live to regret it. It was an honor to serve with you, sir. I think
the lava really got to him, and his guard uniform, I guess. We finally make it back to Joffrey, who lets us know that Bruma can't really protect itself and will need allies. And I'll be honest with you, this part of the quest I was a bit worried about, because Martin will not be essential during the fight. This means we can fail if he dies, and what are we gonna do? Pretend we're a level 5 Charmander and just leer at him? The point is, don't hug me, I'm scared. While getting extra guards for Bruma isn't a requirement, we're definitely going to do it. First up is Shaden Hall, because it's first alphabetically. My alphabet, not yours. So I guess Lord Farquaad had a son Farwell and he died inside this gate. I'll be real, I didn't care at the time and I still don't now, but this sigil stone needs a yoinkin and I'm only too happy to oblige. Afterwards, we go talk to the Count.
I know you did the best you could.
Psst, we really did, but he doesn't need to know that. Guards, please. Next up on our world tour is Anvil. Yoink?
Yoink.
Guards, please. Next up is Kvatch. They kind of already have their hands full, but whatever. We failed to advance the quest because this archer, and the followers of Luigi are, let's just say, not the brightest bunch, okay? But it's fine. We'll leave Kvatch to continue burning and all that. Next up is Skingrad, but that's because Kvatch would not release its iron grip of enemies nearby, and we had to run all the way to Skingrad. Yoink.
Yoink.
Where's the Count? Oh, I forgot this guy's a vampire or something, so we just break into his bedroom and tell him the deed is done. So long, and thanks for the guards. Next up is Coral. Yoink.
Yoink.
Guards, please. Now Breville. Yoink.
Yoink.
But before guards, please, we buy some skooma.
Can I interest?
The Mythic Dawn doesn't like that, but the guards of Breville don't take kindly to vigilantes and are experienced practitioners of police brutality. Guards, please. Leowyn has 2 Oblivion gates obnoxiously close to it, and I didn't know which one was the one they were upsetty spaghetti about, so we run a pasta the correct one and close the wrong one. Whoops. After closing the correct one again, we get some guards. Bet you didn't see that one coming. Taking a break from guarding things or acquiring other individuals that also guard things, it's time to get the blood of a god that is surrounded by guards. I mean wraiths, or something. The armor is from one known as Tiber Septim or Talos. I feel like that guy in particular and the worship of him may have some kind of relevance to later Elder Scrolls titles, but I haven't played them, so who knows. Unfortunately, we can't get to the armor that has his blood on it because it's protected by the breath of Talos, which is as minty as it is deadly. After wandering around being constantly harassed by wraiths, we free the undead blades from, well, undeath I guess, except now they're ghosts? I don't really know, but the point is after being the conduit to which they shed their immortal oil, the ghosties tell Talos to calm down and take a deep inhale. And we quickly grab the armor and make our escape. Similar to Kvatch, we're in eternal combat with our own inner demons, so we just run all the way back to Cloud Ruler Temple. Martin pulls out his handy-dandy notebook and points us towards Miscarand for a great Welkin stone. Now, the only time we've really set foot in some Ayleid ruins was to watch Ulrich Leyland die, so we really have very little experience with them and may not even know where to go. Never mind, it's right by the camp we passed by already. After stealing this precious artifact, we hoof it back to Skingrad where we're safely out of combat and fast travel to our dear friend. He tells us it's time to don our weapons and armor. We tell him that we'll stand there and do nothing.
It's my turn to act.
But before we do nothing in Bruma, we head back to Kvatch to see if we can do nothing there, in just the right way that we can complete the quest and get that one last extra guard. This time there was a caster rather than an archer, and we can reflect spells. So eventually he dies, and we can finally go save the Count. I'm sure he's still fine. He was not fine. We try to tell Savlian the Count's dead, but we forgot he took a vacation day and was already heading to Skingrad. We eventually find him and that's it. We have every possible guard for Bruma. So, we can't put it off any longer. It's time to start the defensive Bruma quest. But I'm scheming over here. I'm probably more scared of this quest than I really should be, but I devise an ingenious plan. I piss off the guards. Yeah, that's right. That's the whole plan. My thought is if I can pull the entire city's regiment of guards out into the battlefield chasing some thief that stole someone's sweet roll, maybe they would help fight. Instead, the town ends up being murdered, and we almost get ourselves killed by a flying bird. Okay, well, it seemed worth a shot. I don't know, don't look at me like that. Well, with our 8 guards, let's just do this quest already. The TBI bros are helping out at least, and somehow the enemies are ignoring Martin, so maybe we're good? Once the Great Gate opens, the race is on. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know where or how you're supposed to open the gates, but we just hop right by them, go up the tower, and that's it. Time to survey the wreckage. Yoink. And Sean Bean is still alive? Oh my god, I thought for sure he was gonna die in this game. I'm so glad he lives. Although literally everyone else was dead, including Joffrey. We give them all a proper burial by taking off their pants and placing them gently on their heads. I call this a Luigi burial. With that, Martin opens a portal to paradise, Las Vegas. Mankar Cameron begins dialoguing with us immediately. We try to ignore him, but his voice is just so loud.
So, the cat's paw of the Septims arrives at last.
Finally, some Dremora says we look familiar and wants to fight. Or, I guess Luigi wants to fight, and this guy thinks he's tough. He had a Bernie sword, so he managed to actually do like 1/10 of our health.
2 seconds later.
Wow, what an intense fight. We use him as a personal garbage can and leave some gear we don't want on him. Our wonderful friend Mankar begins another soliloquy because we sure aren't listening. There's a door that requires Luigi to show off his pecs in order to enter, but luckily the result is we meet Eldamil, our paradise equivalent stand-in for Earthor. Wait, whatever happened to Earthor anyway? We tell him we're here to kill Mankar, which isn't a total lie. I mean, it's more like stand there while he dies, but we aren't going to get into minutia with new Earthor. After playing house with Eldamil, we're diagnosed with incurable pecs that just won't quit. And now we can leave the cave of lava and sadness. We climb the 7,000 steps to High Rothgar and find Park of Snacks, an entire garden full of ambrosia. So after crafting a lot of healing potions, it's finally time to face this guy who just wouldn't shut up.
I have waited a long time for you, champion of old Tamriel.
He acts like we invaded his own personal paradise with intent of destroying both the entire realm, him along with it, and all of his followers. What a drama queen. The fight is Luigi and Eldamil versus Raven and Mankar, with Bruma taking a page out of Luigi's book and just kinda doing nothing. This fight though, okay, this fight is kind of the worst because he just keeps healing. Luckily for us, all of the Paradise members, Eldamil included, will just keep respawning forever. Originally, my thought was to hope that he'll reflect a fireball into his face at the exact moment he's dangling upon the precipice of death, right on the threshold before he heals, ideally while Eldamil is wailing on him, but that just didn't happen. Eventually, Mankar breaks his staff and decides to play Punch-Out with our face, which I thought could possibly be helpful because of reflect damage, but it really didn't seem to make a difference. Then I tried to line it up so the spider danger he kept summoning would hit him, which also made no difference. I tried to make him hit Bruma and aggro her. Nada. We try reloading after picking up something like 15 mundane rings from Raven dying over and over. This time, we try to reverse pickpocket a free hood. And really, who would turn down a free hood? It's a foolproof plan. Well, Mankar apparently. This time we line it up so Bruma attacks him, but he still just keeps healing. But because we had reloaded and entered again, I noticed something was different. He was summoning a Daedra this time, not a spider Daedra. Finally, maybe we have an out. So, it turns out that Mankar will always have a staff, but the spells he gets are random. And while he gets 2 restoration spells, restoration has a big pool to pull from. And Mankar really fills the pool of that pool, so after a brief game of billiards, we reload from a save outside, and lo and behold, we have a savior. RNGesus has blessed our run. Mankar seems to get absorb health this time, which will only heal him if he can get through both 80% spell reflect and 65% spell absorption. And it doesn't work out for him this time. He finally dies. And with it, Paradise is lost. He doesn't have pants we can put on his head, but we can at least steal his robe. And with that nonsense finally behind, we hand over the Amulet of Kings and head to the Imperial Palace. We need to get to the Temple of the One. On the way there, we drop Mankar's staff so he can live on in our hearts. Reynald is Mankar now. Mehrunes Dagon himself makes an appearance, I assume because he hasn't had a good shave in a while and just wants his razor back. We try to reflect some damage his way, but he really hurts. So we exploit his only weakness and walk 3 feet to the left of him. And that's it.
I do what I must do.
The world is saved. Luigi did nothing. And Sean Bean dies in yet another form of media. Like if you cry every time. Can you become the Archmage without ever casting a spell? Or attacking at all, I guess. Let's find out.